we have exposed a very big kind of highway or expressway related corruption yesterday as well. But today the senior journalist, Mr. Faraz Shaukat Ali, has more to expose. Faraz, what is this newest exposure?
Several months ago, the government, the Prime Minister actually signed off on a cabinet memo, and basically it was so that they agreed to get a bank loan through a Japanese bank for $1 billion, $1 billion, and they called for a process. They made it out that this was a government-to-government facility, but it's actually not so. It's a commercial.
Can you please explain? This particular loan was taken for what? What's the purpose?
Ostensibly to fund the Section 3 of the Central Expressway.
Okay.
That is 32.5 kilometers.
Okay.
Now, in the first process, they managed to ensure that this was open only to Japanese companies, and they roped in the embassy of Japan, and the RDA chairman wrote to the ambassador and asked to be recommended some names, and using the services of a local chamber, the embassy did provide 3 names. Now they used this as though it was an internationally funded project where the government of Japan is funding this, but it's not. It's a commercial loan with commercial rate. If it's a government of Japan facility, then the usual form is it's limited to Japanese companies.
Usually, Japanese are considered very clean nation.
Indeed, there's
So
nothing
why you are raising this question? Like why now you bring this matter into this table, saying under the label of a corruption?
Well, it's like this. 3 companies participated in the initial bid.
Okay.
2 companies didn't even submit a bid.
There's only one company submitted.
Just one company submitted it, but they didn't supply the bid security, the bid bond.
So even they will not qualify.
No, that's right. And so the project committee and the cabinet-appointed negotiating committee, the CANC, rejected and annulled the entire process.
Okay.
Because obviously nobody was fully compliant.
Then why was this suspicion point came up?
Thereafter, now we have a situation where that first call was annulled.
Okay.
They then introduced another company. A 4th company, also Japanese.
Okay. Was it recommended by the embassy again?
No, it wasn't.
Who chose it?
Well, that is a little bit hazy.
Okay.
It's a bit grey. We don't know. All right?
Okay.
But they then had another, they called it round 2. But you can't have round 2. When you annul one tender, you must call for another.
Okay. There won't be a round 2.
Yes, that's what the National Procurement Guidelines say.
Okay.
How can you have round 2 when round 1 was annulled?
Okay.
Right, so you need to have a new process. In this second round, they had 2 bids. One from the original company that didn't supply the bid bond, and another that was the new company. However, the project committee and the CANC rejected the offer and the bid made by the second company on the grounds that they did not have the expertise or the experience in key areas.
Like still the negotiation is to select a company. Now
that's right.
How come there would be a corruption? How does money get involved in this?
Well, I'll explain that to you. What they did was the project committee and the CANC cancelled the bid. They rejected the bid of the second company. It was then left to just the one company. This time round, they did manage to give the bid bond.
Okay.
The bid security. Now then,
were they a preferred company before?
Well, they have a long history of involvement in Sri Lanka. They are also represented in Sri Lanka by a businessman who is known as a private banker, a secretive businessman who is under investigation on money laundering and all sorts of other charges.
So that means a bigwig who's connected to the previous governments as well?
A bigwig who's been connected to a number of governments, not just this government or the previous one.
What's the total loan amount that they are talking about?
The initial bid was for 159 billion rupees.
159 billion?
Yes.
Okay.
However, the cabinet appointed negotiating committee did their job, and they negotiated with them and settled at a price at just under 135 billion. It's 134 billion 904 million rupees.
You tell me this part. What's the cost per kilometer in US dollar millions?
Approximately, and I hope you're seated well, because it's $26 million per kilometer.
$26 million?
That's right.
So they were talking about 12 or $10 billion US dollars, million dollars, when they were talking about the corruption in the southern highway.
That's correct.
This is more than double of that amount.
That's right. That's right, indeed. At that time, that government said it was difficult terrain.
Yes.
And I'm sure the Central Expressway is also difficult terrain.
So does President aware of this situation?
Well, that's a good point. We have a letter, we have a copy of a letter dated May of this year, in which the President cancels this, saying that it is not in keeping with national procurement guidelines.
Okay.
So the President is aware. He's aware because he cancelled it.
Who has put the cabinet paper?
The Minister in charge of Highways, Mr. Lakshman Kiriyatna.
Okay, then the loan, the request for the loan was signed by the Prime Minister.
That's right. It was okayed initially by the Prime Minister.
$26 million per kilometer. That's a huge increase compared to all the other highways.
Yes, I mean, you have to look at it. But the complaint was that $12 million a kilometer was too much at that time, and now it's $26 million. Unfortunately, the bond scam, Bondgate, was exposed, mainly by this network. And any monies that were able to be made from Bondgate appears to be on hold, thanks to the Commission.
Yes.
So they need to find the money from somewhere, and I believe that these projects, the road projects in this particular section 3, is such an opportunity.
So that means, as general public, you and I have to pay for their sins?
That's the way it looks like.